Fantastic. Sam, congratulations on HVG volunteer manager year. It's great to see your face. Okay, but separate from that, I'm Pippa.
Thank you.
No, it's really lovely. So yes, as Alex said, I am the co-production volunteer and program coordinator at Derby Museums. For those of you that don't know, Derby Museums is an independent charity trust separate from Derby City Council. And about 10 years ago, we went into the huge endeavour of developing the then known as Derby Silk Mill, allegedly the first modern factory of the world, into the now known as Museum of Making, which, as Alex shared, I've got a couple more months to say that last year we were finalists in the Arts Fund's Museum of the Year awards. So yeah, about 10 years ago, there was that desire to redevelop the silk mill. It was 18 million redevelopment, and it opened in 2021 and saw the participation of 1,500 people donating 40,000 hours of their time, skill and passion. To be able to do that, that 18 million came from a variety of stakeholders: the National Lottery Heritage Fund, the Arts Council, D2N2, and also individual support alongside organisational support like Rolls-Royce. With a capital project at that scale, we felt it really important to showcase an evaluation that made made statements and assessed and shared kind of the environmental, the social and economic value of the project. So that's why we went down the SROI route. I would love to hear, to see with your hands up, please, in terms of how many of you have heard of SROI. If you want to put your hands up in the screen or just put the icon, that would be fantastic. Great.
Getting a few hands up there, Pippa. Sort of about half, I think, have heard of it again.
Great. Now, same as before, it is something that not many of us have heard about, or if we have, we just kind of read maybe those strange kind of letters all put together. So, as a note, I wanted to mention that the SROI evaluation that we conducted was an in-house evaluation. So there were 2 members of staff back in 2017 that were given kind of like the thumbs up to go down to London to get a full day training. And they also had the support of consultants throughout the evaluation, but it was kind of like a on and off, drop in, drop out, and there might have been 5 consultants by the end of it, and there was a lot of effort in trying to secure those consultancies. I call myself an SROI intruder, and that was mainly because I was volunteering back in 2017 and 2018 when the first survey went out, so I kind of already knew about the evaluation. But then in 2019, I was the maternity cover for the volunteer coordinator then, and then came back and worked full-time in 2021 once the Museum of Making had opened. So the SROI was intending to capture 5 years of evaluation. So straight from 2017 when I was volunteering all the way to 2022 as now I'm employed. But it was a project that meant to capture that 5 years. However, whilst we had surveys throughout those 5 years, we were only able to report back on the 2021 activities upon opening, primarily because for an SROI, you need significant and relevant data on across the environmental, the social and economic areas. COVID-19, of course, affected everything, and it happened at a crucial time of the final stages of the redevelopment, which meant that there was more data We also had edited timeframes, plus like the loss of capacity because of furlough, for instance. And then surveys had to be edited because we had to see how COVID was affecting the answers. So say, for instance, we were asking in terms of anxiety levels amongst volunteers, but we also had to ask the follow-up question of how much of that anxiety would they attribute, or would they say it was due to COVID-19. So maybe the responses were a little bit different. And SROIs are incredibly complex. I've asked the team to share the full reports in the chat, but also you can see in the presentation if you click on the link there. It is a minefield, and what I'm going to offer is basically an introduction and kind of like my own personal experience from doing the evaluation as part of the evaluation team. But to start off with, it would be just fantastic to hear, how do you evaluate your volunteer programs at the moment? And also, if you know about SROI, what do you know? And it would be great to hear back from you after that. So yeah, if you could put everybody into breakout rooms, that would be fantastic.
Sorry, I think there was something going on in the background there. Can we have some feedback, please? Have any of the rooms got anything that they particularly wanted to add into the mix at this stage? Room 1? Room 2?
I'm not sure what room I was in, but I can feedback on ours. Yeah, we had some really good conversations, different ways of collecting data. I think lots of us would like to do it maybe in a more meaningful way, but we are all trialing different things. So at the moment, it's been done through surveys, celebration events, exit feedback when people leave, and one of my colleagues said they'd done something for quite a while where they were getting feedback after every shift, but found that wasn't meaningful. So they've changed that and do it less frequently, and they're getting a better picture. Some of the feedback, they collect anonymous feedback, which is great because it encourages people to be maybe more critical, but not always helpful if you don't know who they are and how you can help support that. Few new people in post, and they're looking at how they do that feedback. I can't remember who said this, but for their latest feedback questionnaire that they did, they actually involved a group of volunteers. So they helped to sort of come up and vet the questions before it went out. And that was really useful. And then it's done in supervision, yearly newsletters, so that kind of thing. And I think everybody is collecting the quantitative data, but it's just developing that impact and qualitative data more. Is that okay from my group? Yeah. Does anybody want to add anything?
That's excellent. I think Alex McLennan, you've got your hand raised. Have you got some feedback?
Yeah, we were thinking that we didn't actually use the term social return on investment very much, but we do similar things and talk about cultural capital and sort of social capital within the community. So I think that we're doing a lot of things that are linked into SROI without specifically using that term itself. So it's quite interesting that, and we were thinking about different things that the communities can benefit in a sort of like a community cohesion way. And we were talking about things like the Bradford Capital Culture and different festivals that the towns are offering, can actually help with social return on investment.
Thank you. That's a good point. And anybody else? Any of the other rooms? Right. In the earlier session, Caroline, Caroline Morrow, did you want to feedback?
I didn't have much to add to the our discussions were very similar to the first person whose name I've already forgotten who spoke before Alex, but yeah, just say that we always have a notebook for each of our volunteer teams, so that if they do want to give feedback after a session, they have that option. There's something that particularly happened, or a question that they have, and then the volunteer supervisors check those each week for their team.
Right. Thank you. Good idea. In the earlier session, Matt mentioned some work that's being done by Durham University, but I didn't take it in quite sufficiently to be able to feedback about that. But he does say that Heritage Volunteering Group is going to be able to pass that information on at some point. Right. So back to you, Pippa.
Thank you. No, it's really great to hear, because we are collecting so much data already. We've already got it in our kind of desires to evaluate our programs, and it's ever so important. Social return of investment is just one of many of the evaluation processes that you can follow. And maybe SROI is not the best when it comes to individual studies in terms of social impact, because it still has that environmental and economical information that is required. So as a reminder, this is kind of like for the whole capital program, the whole capital project of the Museum of Making, the redevelopment of the Museum of Making. So it had to account for visitors, volunteers, constructors, staff members, the whole lot. So this is a really vast study. But what it does, what social return of investment does very well, is that it looks at value. So I say value because it's not about money. It is a desire to use money as a widely accepted way of conveying value. So when I was preparing for this session, I had a cheeky look at the SROI matrix, which is a huge Excel sheet that I'll be able to share later on for you to have a better understanding. But I kind of calculated all the sections that showed like money from the volunteering side, and it looked like for the volunteer impact was over $1 million. So we're looking at 1,666,000 in terms of monetary value. And that was only for 2021, 2022. And I could sing the Miss Congeniality, we are 1 in a million, so that makes me happy. But primarily what I found most valuable was the story of change, of being able to capture that change from the first survey that you send at the very start of the year, and then follow up at the end of the year with another survey with similar questions. You can see the transformation. So if you've asked, for instance, if someone was unemployed, by the end of the year, maybe they come back saying they're now in part-time or full-time employment. So those are the kind of things that SROI looks at. First stage really was to look at the desired outcomes. So there was very early on a decision made that an SROI evaluation would be made to assess and share with the whole variety of stakeholders and funders the social, environmental and economic value of the project. So this is an outcomes map, and it was developed to illustrate the link between the project inputs, the outputs, and the agreed outcomes. So looking just at the first line, for instance, there is an echo across Arts Council and National Heritage Lottery Fund to see that museums are relevant and as resilient. So those are the outcomes A, C, E, F for Arts Council, and 7, 8, and 9 for the National Lottery Heritage Fund. And it wasn't only just the funders that wanted to see us as relevant and resilient civic hubs. It also sits within our own values and causes. So Derby Museums at the very top, one of our core values is that we want to be independent. And then on the other side, you can see the desired volunteer outcomes. At the very bottom, we say that we want to create a community of action and of increased civil engagement. So we do want to create active participants within our programs. Other outcomes touch on the desire for skill development, well-being, sense of pride, ability to connect with others, and sustainability. So I love a Venn diagram, and I do believe that, you know, it's putting the stakeholder outcomes, Derby Museum's outcomes, and volunteer program outcomes all together and see how they marry up with each other. So the final result from the SROI, if this is the first time you've come across this, it kind of attributes kind of like for each pound that is invested within the capital project, we get a return, or the city, the nation gets a return of £5.86 on social value. Now, applying this was extremely challenging. It was a huge scale in terms of wanting to evaluate 5 years of the whole project. And whilst we did want to split each one of those years into stages, it still proved too complex, as data needs to be reliable and significant across 3 areas of social return of investment. So it needs to account for social impact, environmental impact, and economic value. So we could house a lot of that information ourselves in terms of like asking our visitors and asking our volunteers, but a lot of the information in terms of economic value and environmental value sat with third-party organisations such as City Council or the constructors. So what you need, in addition to being able to collect data from all those 3 areas, is training. You do need consultants along the way, especially when you're doing this internally. And you have to dedicate plenty of time to be able to do the research, to be able to ask for surveys, to create the surveys, to analyse the surveys. And as you see, it's many surveys, many surveys. So here's a glimpse, a teeny tiny section of that social return of investment matrix I was talking about. This is kind of like where we input all the data. The first column shows you like the number of people that responded to the survey. So it shows the number of participants. This following column is kind of laying out what was desired outcome. So in this case, it was an increased number of volunteers in employment. What follows is the indicator. So the proportion of those who changed employment status in survey A from being unemployed to then survey B being employed. And these are the numbers, the results that follow that. So maybe for the 49 people that responded, maybe one and a half people would have secured full-time or part-time employment. The other columns are all considerations that you need to have. So questions like, would they have experienced the change anyway had they not been volunteering? What is the potential of them that they attribute the success of them gaining employment to Derby Museums, if there is any? So when I said 1.5 people, it might have been in one of the extensive responses from one of the volunteers. They might have said, well, actually, I gained this employment through another volunteer organisation that I was volunteering for. So that volunteer, we can't really attribute the fact that they gain employment necessarily to Derby Museums. And then there's another consideration in terms of like, by solving this problem, have you moved this problem to somewhere else? Now, not really relevant in terms of employment, but it might be in terms of well-being, or in terms of like supporting families, or who knows. Further down, there is kind of like the actual putting a financial value to that outcome. So in the case of the employment, HACT, which is the Housing Association Charity Trust, have got some research claiming that there is a £14,433 per person that gets employment. And that value increases throughout the year, but also the value of that declines through the period of 5 years. So that's where you see it declining through there. So what it gives you at the end is kind of like the value, and that's what I added up to say that the volunteer program has got a million impact in each year. Wanting to keep things simple, once again, I'd love you to go into breakout rooms and actually have a think in terms of what outcomes you'd like to see within your volunteering program, and also have a think in terms of like what questions would you ask your volunteers to see if those outcomes were achieved.
Right, everybody, welcome back. Pippa's now going to finish off her presentation, and then we'll have time for a question and answer session, and also feedback from the discussions that you've had in your breakout rooms. Pippa, over to you.
Yeah, thank you. So I'll be really interested to hear in terms of like if you come up with some outcomes. That's really the first stage that I would I think it's so very valuable, and also seeing where they connect your own personal outcomes, how they connect to the volunteer program outcomes and the wider organization, and then much bigger for stakeholders. So as I said, in terms of like being able to go through that report, unfortunately, we haven't got time for that, but it is in the chat and it will be sent to you through the slides. So feel free to have a look at it. It was a huge task to do. What I would say is that it's likely that we will not be doing social return of investment as an internal team again, primarily because the level of investment, financial investment and time investment in terms of like skill development is absolutely huge. And then you've also have to consider, you know, you need to get data from third parties. So you need that involvement very, very early on, and that persistence. A lot of the things that used to be available, say 5 years ago, from HACT and from GVE are now behind a paywall. So I definitely say, if you're thinking about SROI, to have like an external organization to do that for you, or really make sure that it sits within a percentage of your job description so that you account for the time that you're going to be doing it. But there's huge amounts of positives. Primarily is that we managed to obtain a huge quantity of rich data that was collected throughout the 5 years. So when you look at the report, you'll see that we still talk about the learnings and the case studies and examples from 2017 all the way to 2021. But when it comes to actually reporting the social return of investment data, we could only keep to that of 2021, 2022, because that was the one that we had significant and relevant data across environmental, social and economical areas. The quality of data was extremely valuable as well. So having the section for volunteers to be able to expand on their responses was really great. And by doing it internally, I had access to live feedback on the volunteer experience, alongside with the ability of witnessing that transformation. So I know the starting point and I know the ending point, and I can see how that changes year on year. And it was really great to be part of that. We've also got a bank of questions now that we can use, survey tools, frameworks for future, and kind of like basics such as not asking binary questions in an evaluation, avoiding kind of those yes or no's, and then really avoiding abstract notions or subjective ones that don't really contribute that much value. So questions like, are you having fun? Or how happy do you feel? It's something that we don't no longer do, like the little smiley face where you can go frowny face, blah face and happy face. We no longer do those either, just because they don't provide enough data and they are incredibly subjective if you're going to be reporting on it. And as we've heard from Chris, for instance, on yesterday, is that it's so very important to provide evidence of impact in everything that we do, be it for funders in terms of like presenting a case in terms of financial value, to our supporters, and also I would add for yourself. So For me, having insight and access to overwhelmingly positive feedback has been a source of joy in my work. And as some of you might have commented in the chat, yes, the Museum of Making is closed at the moment due to the impact of the flooding that took place from the recent storms. But, you know, I can't wait to get back in. And one of the things that is going to help us present a case going forwards is the fact that we've got 83 pages worth of information of the impact that we're making. So yeah, please do share if you thought of any outcomes and any questions. I will stop sharing. Oh, I'll just have my email there. If anybody of you wants to take note of it, by all means, please feel free to get in touch outside of this as well. Thank you.